Well, it's going to be a small class.
Maybe people will watch the recording.
Well, okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome, Sheila and Katya and Jackie and Becky to the Lam Rim Revisited program. We're beginning a journey into Buddhist philosophy that's going to last for many years. May last longer than I'm alive, I don't know, but we'll do our best. So Sheila and Katya, how did you get interested in this program? Let's start with Katya first.
In this program, in the Lam Rim?
Yeah, interested. You saw this advertised.
Yeah, because I went to the retire in Arizona on October, and I want to continue and want to have more wisdom.
Okay, I hope I can give you some.
Yeah, thank you.
And me also, I also went to the retreat in October, and I want to have more resources to continue with my path to be a best person.
Well, that's our goal. That's what we're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie and Becky, I know from previous courses. So Jackie, what was drawing you to this class?
Thank you, dearest Lama Sumati and dearest friends, to be able to apply it in our life and to be able to make a beautiful difference to others in their life and really help to change ourselves so that we can be the very best and be the best of care and kindness and love to others.
Excellent. Becky, she's going to have to type, I think. Oh, well, you're welcome, and I hope it will be. Okay, just to be clear, what I'm doing is I'm taking Geshe Michael's Lam Rim classes, starting with number 1, which was taught in 2010, and I'm using those as the basis for the teaching. So we're going to be following that track, and not verbatim, but to a large extent. But I want to make it more experiential. There's no homework or quizzes. I had several students that don't do well with the didactic style of teaching, so I decided I'd try this instead. So the course format is going to be approximately 2 hours on Tuesday and questions and meditation for 2 hours on Friday. What I'm asking everyone to do is to write down, if you have any questions, write them down. Natalia will provide a form, and then you get them to me by 10 a.m. on Friday, and I'll try my best to answer the questions in the Friday session, along with meditation and general discussion. I encourage you to get together in groups of maybe 4 to 5 students to discuss the material and how to place it in your life. At various points when I'm teaching, I'll be asking students to give me examples of how this has affected them or how they're implementing it in their life. I'm teaching 3 other groups of students, so I'm going to try my best to answer your questions on Friday, but it may get hectic. So a little bit about myself. I'm trained plant biochemist. I have a PhD in plant biochemistry. Was a research scientist for about 25 years. And my hobbies include taking care of my lovely wife, and with the foremost hobby. And then the other hobbies are I write books on nuclear weapon systems, which seems kind of strange for a Buddhist monk, but I started doing that long before I became a monk. So I've published 6 books. If you're interested in military technology of weapon systems, let me know. I'll share the titles with you. Been married for 48 years. You may know my wife. Her name's Sarani. She's quite a prominent teacher with ACI. We both lived at Diamond Mountain from the beginning and did the 3-year retreat. I was the operations manager for the retreat for Diamond Mountain for many years. I became fully ordained in December of 2020. And what's the last thing? I have Parkinson's disease, so I do have a tremor, and that's it's a debilitating disease. I can't type anymore. I don't drive. But what has gotten me through the disease is the fact that I have a Buddhist practice to fall back on. I consider Parkinson's to be a inconvenience for me and for others around me. And I know that it came not from, well, this is a good place to explain the how and the why. How I got Parkinson's was due to the chemicals probably I used in my research. But why I got Parkinson's is because I was inconveniencing other people in the past, and that's ripening now as my having the inconvenience of Parkinson's. So knowing that it was my fault for what I did in the past allows me to accept the Parkinson's and deal with it in that manner. I ask you to come to class with something to rejoice about, and we'll call on various students each class to talk about what they have to rejoice about. So are there any questions? No? Okay. We're going to get started now. So we're going to set our motivation. So I'd like you to get comfortable, close your eyes, and follow what I'm saying and believe and sincerely believe what I'm saying. More precious than a wishing gem is this human form with leisure. To have found such a life happens but this once. Difficult to acquire and easily destroyed, it's like a flash of lightning in the sky. Contemplating this, one must realize all worldly endeavors are like winnowed chaff, and strive day and night to obtain what has true value. I, a yogi, have carried out this practice. You, O seeker of liberation, should do the same. That's how Geshe started the liberation, the Lam Rim Chenmo. And this is a motivation from Ken Rinpoche, Geshe Michael's Heart Lama. You should sincerely believe and think this. I want to reach enlightenment as soon as possible. I want to reach it in this very life. And when I do, I will free every living being from every pain of the suffering existence we all live now. Then I will take all these beings up to the level of a Buddha, which is the ultimate state of happiness. This is why I'm going to study this course, which shows all the steps to enlightenment. So now let's offer the mandala. If you know the mudra, please make the mudra. Here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the 4 continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayame. I have a refuge prayer that I've adapted as per Geshe Michael's instructions in course 6, the Diamond Cutter. And I'd like to use that as our refuge prayer. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration, wisdom, May I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, I will attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Next, I have a tradition of reading the Heart Sutra before I start a major course like this. So again, just relax and listen to the Heart Sutra, and we'll take it from there. The Exalted One, the Lady of Conquest, the Sutra on the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom. I bow first to all enlightened beings and to every warrior saint. Once I heard this teaching. The conqueror was staying on Vulture's Peak in the keep of the king. With him was a great gathering of monks and a great gathering of warrior saints. At a certain moment, the conqueror went into deep meditation on the part of the teachings known as the awareness of the profound. At that moment, too, did the realized being, the great warrior, the Lord of power, loving eyes, see into this one deep practice, the practice of the perfection of wisdom. He saw perfectly that the 5 heaps, the 5 parts of a person, were empty of any nature of their own. Then, by the power of the Enlightened One, the junior monk named Shariputra turned and asked this question of the great warrior, loving eyes, the realized one, the Lord of power. If any son or daughter of noble family hoped to follow the deep practice of the perfection of wisdom, what would they have to do? This then is the answer that the Lord of power, the realized one, the great warrior, loving eyes, gave to the junior monk named Shariputra. Here, Shariputra, is what any son or daughter of noble family should see who hopes to follow the deep practice of the perfection of wisdom. See first, all 5 heaps, all 5 parts of a person are free of any essence of their own. Your body is empty, emptiness is your body. Emptiness is nothing but your body, and your body is nothing but emptiness. The same is true of your thoughts, the same is true of your feelings, your ability to discriminate between things, and the other factors that make you up, and all the different kinds of awareness that you possess. All of them are empty. And thus we can say, Shariputra, that every existing thing is emptiness. Nothing is any characteristic of its own. Nothing ever begins. Nothing ever ends. Nothing is ever impure. Nothing ever becomes pure. Nothing ever gets less. And nothing ever becomes more. And thus we can say, Shariputra, that with emptiness there is no body, there are no feelings, there is no ability to discriminate, there are none of the other factors that make you up, and there is no awareness. There are no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to smell, nothing to taste, and nothing to touch, and nothing to think of. There is no part of you that sees, there is no part of you that is aware that you are seeing, and this is true all the way up to the part of you that thinks and the part of you that is aware that you are thinking. There is no misunderstanding your world, there is no stopping this misunderstanding, and the same is true all the way up to your old age and death, and to stopping your old age and death. There is no suffering. There is no source of this suffering. There is no stopping this suffering. There is no path to stopping this suffering. There is no knowledge. There is nothing to reach, and there is nothing not to reach. Thus it is, Shariputra, that warrior saints have nothing to reach, and because of this, they are able to practice the perfection of wisdom and stay in this perfection of wisdom. This frees them from every obstacle in their minds, and this frees them from all fears. They go beyond all wrong ways of thinking and reach to the ultimate end of nirvana. All the enlightened beings of the past, the present, and the future too follow the same perfection of wisdom, and thus bring themselves to perfect enlightenment, to the matchless state of a totally enlightened Buddha. Thus are they the sacred words of the perfection of wisdom, the sacred words of great knowledge, sacred words of the unsurpassable, sacred words that are equal to the one beyond all equal, sacred words that put a final end to every form of pain, sacred words you should know are true, for false they cannot be, sacred words of the perfection of wisdom, which here I speak for you. Tayata gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhi swaha. And thus it is, Shariputra, that great warrior saints must train themselves in the profound perfection of wisdom. With this, the conqueror stirred himself from his deep state of meditation. He turned to the great warrior, the realized one, loving eyes, the Lord of power, and blessed his words, saying, "True, true," he said, "and true again. Thus it is, O son of noble family, and thus is it. One should follow the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have taught it. Every one of those gone thus rejoice in your words as I do." And when the conqueror had spoken thus, the junior monk Shariputra took joy. I'm sorry. And the warrior, the realized one, loving eyes, the Lord of power, took joy as well. And all the assembled disciples took joy. And so did the entire world with its gods and men, and near gods and spirits too take joy. All sang their praises of what the conqueror had spoken. So, in theory, we now have all the obstacles removed, including my phone going off, and we can get started. So, Lam Rim translates as steps on the path. It's a style of teaching from Lord Buddha. In the US, there's a line of self-help books with bright yellow cover with an image of a chalkboard. On the chalkboard is the title of the book. For instance, Calculus for Dummies, or Algebra for Dummies, or English Grammar for Dummies. Geshe Michael referred to these Lam Rim teachings as enlightenment for dummies. This style of teaching comes from Dzongkapa, whose dates are 1357 to 1419. And what he meant by enlightenment for dummies is the Lam Rim teachings condense all of Buddhist philosophy into a succinct group of teachings that, if followed perfectly, can lead to enlightenment in this lifetime. But I have to emphasize, they have to be followed very carefully and perfectly in order to reach that goal in one life. A complete path to enlightenment is revealed in these teachings, but you just can't read it and get enlightened. So that's the point of teaching it. Pabonka Rinpoche, who lived from 1878 to 1941, was a gifted and powerful teacher. He taught a 24-day course to about 700 people in Tibet. Now, you have to remember back in those times, loudspeakers and things like that, this is in 1921, loudspeakers and things like that were few and far between. So Pabonka Rinpoche had the power of such a powerful voice that he could teach to 700 people without a loudspeaker. There was a 20-year-old Tulku, Trijang Rinpoche. His dates are 1901 to 1981. He took notes, and he spent the rest of his life cleaning these notes up and making this book. He became the tutor to the 14th Dalai Lama and was also Geshe Michael's heart teacher, Ken Rinpoche's teacher. So we're really fortunate to have this text, and it was translated into the liberation thrust in the palm of your hand. We're starting at the back of the book, learning meditation first. We're going to learn to meditate, understand emptiness, and by meditating carefully and learning how to meditate carefully and properly, then you can focus your meditation skills on the concept of emptiness. And with hard work and any luck, you'll be able to understand reality and use that understanding to live your life the way necessary to become enlightened. But to do that, you have to have a still state of mind to really understand and help the world. So we're going to start not on day 24, but on day 21. We're going to learn how to meditate and take that tool, then go to the front of the book to chapter 1 and continue on. You're going to learn a meditation practice called perfect mental stillness. You're going to learn how the world really works. And it's going to be confusing, but hang in there. It's a fun path, and it explains a lot. When I actually started to learn this material, it made the world make so much more sense. My wife's parents were two of my best friends, and they died in a plane crash, 1987. And we both wondered how this possibly could have happened. It wasn't fair. They died, and we were not going to have them in our life anymore. So my wife went on a journey. It took several years of going to studying different philosophies to try and get an understanding for why this happened. We weren't brought up as Christians, so we didn't think a God had caused them to be killed. But why did they have to die? They were just wonderful, giving people. So finally, after many years, she settled on Buddhism and shared that with me. And as we learned about karma and emptiness, then it made much more sense. We had the karma to have them leave our life because of how we had treated others and made perhaps somebody in a previous life lose their loved ones. That made much more sense to me than just the plane happened to go down because of mechanical failure. The how and the why, again, is important here. The how the plane went down was they lost one of the engines and went down into the water. The why they lost the engine was because of a previous karma ripening. What the specific karma was, it's hard to know. But the idea is it was their fault. And I think it's easy to get the misrepresentation of what I mean by that. It's their fault in that it's a karma ripening for something they did in the past. It's not their fault that they were bad people. It's just something they did in the past that caused someone else to lose a loved one. And that ripened, and they're losing their lives in our life. So to learn how to meditate, we're going to learn 6 steps to learn to meditate. The first one is the conditions. The second are the instructions. In the coming years, you're going to climb through 9 levels of meditation steps. Powers of the mind's number 4. Number 5 is 4 ways the mind changes. And number 6 is called perfect stillness. Before you can see the true nature of reality, you have to have a silent state of mind. And there's an analogy in the Buddhist literature The study of paintings on a cave wall. If you're in a dark cave, you need a butter lamp to see the paintings. But if it's windy, the light is unsteady and you cannot see clearly what you're looking for. So if you learn to meditate well, it'll be like having a steady lamp. You will walk up a steady stairway to enlightenment because you can focus your attention on the teachings. But if you don't have a still mind, if you can't meditate, it's going to make it very much more difficult, like the butter lamp flame blowing in the breeze. Whether you are seeking goals for yourself, goals for others, or whether you are practicing the secret teaching to help others in a single lifetime, if you learn to meditate with complete stillness, you can achieve all these goals quite easily. But if you want to learn to meditate deeply, you have to start with the proper conditions to meditate. These instructions were taken from the Lamp on the Path by Lord Atisha. He says to you, if you can't get together the proper conditions for learning to meditate, for your meditation practice, you can try to meditate for 1,000 years, but you'll never achieve perfect concentration. Now, we're going to be going through a description by Pabonka Rinpoche that's describing getting conditions ready for retreat. Now, it's not going to really be applicable to us because you're not going into a 3-year retreat. You're not supporting a 3-year retreat. These teachings were taught. This particular teaching, my wife and I attended shortly before we went into 3-year retreat. So the students he's talking to in this Lam Rim are going to go into a retreat in January of the next year. And he's describing the conditions and how they need to prepare for that retreat. That's Lam Rim number 2, and we'll be teaching that after we get done with Lam Rim number 1. So, what are the conditions you need before you sit down on your cushion? You need a place to meditate, which is conducive to meditation. That's number 1. You have to reduce your needs. That's number 2. You have to learn to be happy with what you have already. Number 3. You've got to start giving up excess stimulation and activity. Number 4. You must become a highly ethical person. You can't cheat on your taxes even slightly. You can't lie to your brother even slightly. You can't mess around with someone else's partner even slightly. It's one of the preconditions. You have to be highly ethical. Number 6, you should try to clean your mind of all random thoughts. So we're going to go into each of these. So you need a conducive place. The place where you hope to do your retreat should have 5 qualities. He's quoting Sutra Alamkara, written down by Master Asanga, who was spoken by Lord Maitreya, who's the upcoming Buddha. A, stuff should be easy to find. The retreat area you're going to be in, the cabin, should be stocked already. Food and other materials you use for your practice. Easy to find means pure, purchased honestly. Again, the question of the ethics of how you're living your life. When we say stuff is easy to find, what we mean is easy to find in a clean way without hurting other people. Food and other things should be gotten honestly. Now, this is maybe a problem back in the day of Jason Kappa. This doesn't imply that anybody would lie and cheat or steal to get their cabin. But if you do have the tendency to think that way, that's going to ruin your retreat. It should be a perfect place. B, you should try and find a meditation cabin on a spot where some holy person has meditated before. In this country, we don't have 1,000 years of meditation practice behind us, a history of that, tradition of that. So it's hard to find something like that in this country. At least try to avoid something place that has negative energy. The places, there should be places where there's not been great conflict. At Diamond Mountain, there was a place where Geronimo, an Indian, Apache Indian, was captured. We had a ceremony to cleanse Diamond Mountain of the bad karma and spirits that came with that unfortunate circumstance. But what you do want to do is do a little research on where you're going to do a retreat. Now, this doesn't really apply to us in the sense of we're not, as I said before, we're not going to go somewhere to do retreat. But the students that Geshe Michael was talking to were going to be involved in this retreat in January. And he says, kind of tongue in cheek, don't choose a place where there are lions, tigers, and bears. That's interesting he mentions that because we had bear problems at Diamond Mountain during 3-year retreat. Brown bears came to visit and broke into several cabins. So we talked about negative spirits. How do you get rid of negative spirits? You should try to befriend them and have compassion for them. So during 3-year retreat, we had a problem with red ants. I'm allergic to red ant bites. My feet swell up, my legs swell up, and it could be life-threatening. So these red ants were something I didn't want in our cabin. So red ants, well, ants in general, come in basically 3 flavors as far as I'm concerned. They either like protein, they like sugar, or they like oil. So we put out, near their anthill, we put out small offerings of sugar, cheese for protein, and oil. And we looked to see which type of ant they were. And then we started to feed them that particular, so if they liked cheese, that particular anthill liked cheese, we put out cheese, and then they just would go to the cheese by their anthill and not come into our cabin. And that worked really well. What was funny was we had some sugar in a container, and later on we realized they were protein ants, probably, because we had sugar in a container they didn't go for. But I don't know if you're familiar with the bouillon cubes, those cubes of concentrated spices you put in to make soup. They went and found those and started eating to the foil wrapper, and were taking bits of bouillon cubes back to their anthill, which I thought was quite strange. But it really worked well. So we befriended them by feeding them instead of trying to kill them all. So we talked about the stuff should be easy to find for your retreat. It should be a perfect place. It should be a perfect location. Good location means it won't be too hot or too cold. You should find a place that is temperate and fits your body type. You shouldn't decide to go do a retreat in a really cold cabin thinking you'll just bundle up. Try to make it comfortable temperature-wise. The place, the soil of the place, the water should be healthy. Make sure the environment has been taken care of and not harmed with chemicals. D, you should have perfect companions. Now, this is talking about a retreat where you do retreat with others. We did a 3-year retreat with about, I think it was at one time, 36 people, which had all gone through courses with Geshe Michael to train and be ready for 3-year retreat. So we knew all these people were compatible and we would all get along with them. There's an expression in Tibetan, meditate with a shadow. Meditate with a shadow as your friend. Some people misunderstood it. It was spoken by the 5th Dalai Lama. It means you should find companions who are as like-minded as your shadow. They are following you like a shadow. E, have all the required articles for meditation. When you go into meditation, into a meditation retreat, you should have isolated the subject you're going to meditate on and analyzed it carefully. You should take in the materials you need with you, so you don't have to ask for materials to be sent in. So then number 2 is reduce your needs. Reduce the needs you have in your life. So before a retreat, start tapering down on the things you think you need. Don't be worried about having a lot of food or enough food or nice clothes. The more stuff you have, the more you have to do. The more you have to do, the more meditation sessions you'll miss. And the more sessions you'll miss will drag you closer to the death and stop you from having a good retreat. Be happy with what you get. This is really important. When you do a retreat, if you have someone taking care of you and they're doing the cooking, that's the best. If you're doing not a 3-year retreat, but let's say a week retreat, you want to have, if at all possible, have someone else cook for you so you don't have to be distracted from your meditation sessions with what's for dinner, what's for lunch, do I have enough, do I need to order more? During 3-year retreat, we did our own cooking, and that was somewhat of a distraction. I'm the cook in the family, so I took on the distraction of cooking so my wife didn't have to worry about it. But the important thing with this is, 1, have someone else cook for you, if at all possible. And 2, when you ask for something, if they're cooking for you, hopefully you've discussed with them the things you like to eat and those things you don't like to eat. But if something comes into you and you're served a meal, you don't reject it and say you won't eat it. You're happy with what you get, and you enjoy the fact that someone went to the trouble of cooking your meal and bringing it to you. There's another way to think about this, but being happy with what you get, that Ken Rinpoche taught in one of the classes on the source of all my good. And that is, you're not only grateful for the people that are taking care of you, you're grateful for the people that stocked the store, the shelves of the grocery store that your caretaker shopped at. You're grateful for the people that drove the produce to the store that you shop at. You're grateful for the farm workers that harvested the food that's shipped to where you buy it. There's a whole chain of thanks that you should give. I like to give thanks to the people when I'm checking out of a grocery store. I like to look at the label that usually they're women, the label they're wearing, and address them by name. Now, I have to be careful as both a monk and as a male. I have to be careful because usually the label, their name tag is over their left breast. So I can't very well be staring at that, trying to find out what their name is. So I have to scan across it and catch their name. Then at the end, I say thank you to Yvonne. Thank you for checking me out and being so friendly. And I thank the bagger as well, trying to catch their name. I think all too often we just assume that they're enjoying their job. Why not make it a little easier on them and thank them? I also do that when I am on the phone for support for my computer. And after I get the thanks, get the help, I say something along the lines of, well, you know how at the beginning of a phone conversation, often it says, this is going to be taped for quality control. And what I say is, if anybody's listening, this young person deserves a raise. And one time I said that, and I heard laughter, 2 different levels of laughter. And it turned out the young lady I was talking to, this was her first day on the job at a phone center. And the second laughter was her boss was listening on the phone. So she was also laughing because I was saying this young lady should get a raise. The other thing I do, which I think is also very nice, and I would appreciate if I was a phone call center person, is I thank them for having a very pleasant voice. And that often really makes them smile or laugh. It actually usually catches them off guard. They don't think anybody recognizes that. So it's little things like this that said, if you want to get complimented in the future, if you want people to appreciate what you do, all the hard work you do, then set the stage now by thanking others for the good deeds they do. Then you're with the intent of planting the seeds so that in the future you'll get that kind of recognition. Because it's really important, and I'll say this more than once throughout the teachings, as I will describe the how and the why more than once. But you really have to think of the past is what the present is the past and the future is the present. So another way to put that is what happens in the present is due to your deeds in the past. What happens in the future is how you reacted to those deeds in the present. So it's very important to keep that in mind all the time. If you get angry, you're just setting the seeds for anger in the future. If you try hard not to get angry, you're setting the seeds for that not happening in the future. Okay, number 4, give up excess stimulation activity. This is prior to retreat. So you don't want to like take on, before you're going into retreat, start a video game and try and get to the top and get all frustrated and enthusiastic about that, only to quit and have to worry about whether you're going to be able to return to the game with the same prowess after retreat. So stop activity that's excessive stimulation well before you go into retreat. Number 5 is lead a highly ethical life. That's very important. We're going to talk more and more about that as we go through the classes. But it's something to remember is the phrase, it's not my karma, but it's my karma so. If you say it's my karma, but in this case, it's okay if I squish a bug. No, it's your karma. So if you squish a bug, that's going to come back as killing something. And you need to be aware of the fact you did it, and that's going to come back as something similar in the future. So you have to be very careful not to think to yourself, it's your karma, but it's really important. And you'd be surprised if you stop and think about it, you'll probably be surprised with how often you find that you're saying it's your karma, but, and you do something. Well, for instance, my wife and I like to have dessert after a meal. We usually have a small dessert during the week, and then we have a larger one on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if I'm preparing dessert and I have a piece of cake and I cut it, do I take the larger piece because it's my karma, but she'll never know I took the larger piece? Or do I give her the larger piece because it's my karma? So if I want the larger piece in the future, I need to give her the larger piece. Now that seems pretty trivial, but don't forget, karma is movement of the mind and what it causes in body and speech. So the movement of the mind was who gets the larger piece. And the action in body was, I know that if I give it to her, I will in the future get not so much necessarily a larger piece of dessert. I will get the best of what can be given. So that's another example is when you make an offering, don't offer what's handy, offer something that's really sweet. The highest offering anybody can give me is their practice. If you're a student of mine and I see you do something that reflects what I've been trying to teach you, that's the highest offering. Sure, money's nice, flowers are nice, don't get me wrong, but practice is what really is the sweetest thing for me. Okay. Let's see. Keep your activities few and your needs few. In order to protect your meditation, watch how much you take on and how much you do. Don't go into a meditation retreat saying you're going to do 100,000 mantras and you're going to do a retreat in 3 days. The chances of you getting 100,000 mantras done in 3 days is pretty remote. So you don't want to set something up that you not be able to meet your expectations. That doesn't mean say, oh, I'll do 5 mantras. Oh, goody, I got that done. I've done my mantra count. You just have to learn to be reasonable. There was a spirit called Bekar in Tibet. This was a spirit being who wanted to ruin two high lamas' practice. They were getting too good at their practice and they came onto the bad spirit's radar. They say if you start getting serious about your practice, you will attract trouble. The minute you start getting serious, they start a construction project next door, and they look like construction workers, but they're really spirit beings. They become the minute you start doing something good. So the spirit being wanted to ruin these two High Lamas' meditation. So he gave them iron pens. Most people back in the day used bamboo sticks, which wore out. But if you were an important person, you got an iron pen. The demon offered the lamas each an iron pen, and he taught them how to do complicated astrological charts. They both used up 1,000 pens doing them, and they didn't get to their spiritual goals because they got diverted into doing these charts. So the idea here is do something to waste your time pleasantly. Don't do something to waste your time that's going to take you away from what you're really wanting to do. Geshe Michael wrote himself 10,000 pages of scripture. It was a custom in Tibet that when you wrote a heavy scripture, you put the title in 3 languages, Tibetan and 2 forms of Sanskrit. They take a long time to learn, and Geshe Michael never did that. It's not that he didn't know Sanskrit, it's that the rules of composition in Sanskrit are difficult to learn. He knew them, but he was afraid by getting sidetracked by minor knowledges such as that, it would ruin his higher practice. So he didn't do those kind of things. Pabonka Rinpoche was trying to learn a complicated astrological chart. He spent a year doing one complicated chart. The only benefit was he wrote out 2 wooden boards used to make wore out 2 wooden boards used to make the computations. It was busyness. It didn't help his practice at all. Number 6, getting rid of useless thoughts. Trying to stop sometimes and think about wanting so much stuff causes problems. Try to remember how everything is nothing. Your life is passing. Whatever is stopping you from meditating, it will pass, and you won't remember it. You're working on a new house or a new car or a new boyfriend, whatever it is that leaves you too busy to meditate. All this stuff is transitory. The only thing that's important, really important, is developing this meditative capability. All the things you worry about are fleeting, but meditation, the meditation skill is the tool that's so important. You don't want to ignore it. Learn to meditate well, and you have a very valuable thing that will help you, not only yourself, but everybody. This is a quote that Geshe Michael isn't quite sure. Well, it's not that he doesn't agree with it, but it really means something different. This is the following. Now, if you make effort in trying to learn, if you really bust ass, as he says, you will achieve shamatha within 6 months. So that's if you learned how to meditate perfectly and you do everything perfectly. From my personal experience, that's not going to happen. So I'm not so much worried about getting shamatha in 6 months. I've been working on meditation for, well, since 2005. So 18, 19 years, and I'm still very much a beginner. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about this class. It's only an hour. Do I have any questions? No questions?
Not me at the moment.
Well, I guess I bored you all to death. The important thing with all of this is to not get overwhelmed by what we're teaching, but to understand this is a slow, steady progress. And I would invite you to review what we've gone over. One of the problems some of my students have is they're not good at memorizing. Memorize as much as you can. I'm not going to quiz you on it next class, but I really encourage you to take this and make the lists we've talked about and start a journal maybe with these lists in it so you can go back to look at them. Okay. Now, an important thing we need to do at the end of a teaching is to dedicate the goodness of the deed. So this is the dedication that comes with the ACI courses. I'll share that with you, and then I want to share a couple I used in 3-year retreat. By the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So during 3-year retreat, I had 2 pages of dedications I gave. And so I'm not going to give you the whole 2 pages, but this is one of my favorite dedications. May the source of benefit and goodness, the Dharma, spread and expand. May the beings upholding the Dharma have excellent health. May the source of happiness and well-being for all embodied beings, the Dharma taught by the Buddhas, always increase. So we'll be going through the different stages of meditation as a general outline, and then we'll start in the second course, Lam Rim 2. We'll actually start doing what they did in meditation retreat. So that'll be meditating every day, every class, several times as we go through and try and learn the various aspects of it. Meditation, when you first hear of meditation, you probably think of something very drastic and hard to do. You're going to sit there thinking about space, empty space. That's not what our lineage of meditation is about. It's quite dynamic. It's got some difficult to understand issues with problems that you have in meditation that are hard to articulate. The easiest way to know them is to start to meditate, and what we're describing will appear to you during your meditation. And so that's where the experiential part of this course comes in. You need to learn, you need to try and meditate to learn what the problems are in meditation and experience them yourself. So we'll be working on that and trying to understand it. It is a difficult subject to teach, but most important is you are meditating every day. Just a tip from me, pick a time to meditate and stick with it. Don't promise yourself you're going to, if you get up at 7 o'clock to go to work, don't promise yourself you're going to get up at 6 and meditate, unless you're really going to do that. My meditations are best done in the morning because I don't have the day stretched out in front of me. I'm retired now, so my days are pretty much whatever I want them to be. And so I meditate in the morning. This morning I had to get up at 5 to teach some students in Malaysia. So I ended up getting up at 3:30 and was wide enough awake to have a reasonably good meditation. But I do. So do I do it at 3 in the morning every day? No, I do it before the day starts, but that could be at 7, that could be at 3. Best to do it at the same time every day. There's nothing wrong with meditating at night if you can keep yourself from reviewing the day as you're meditating. But try and get the same time each day. And if you start meditating at 5 minutes this week and add a minute each week, by the end of the year, you'll be meditating 57 minutes, which is essentially the hour Geshe Michael talks about. Now, will you be meditating solely on one object for an hour? I read a while back where Geshe Michael talks about meditating for an hour means you try to meditate for an hour. And that could be 5 minutes of good meditation and then another 5 minutes on a different object. So don't be daunted by the fact you have to meditate for an hour at one go. Jackie, I didn't catch what you wrote.
Thank you so much, dearest Lama Sumati, for this beautiful teaching that we're sharing together. Deeply grateful that you've given your time so preciously to us and sharing this beautiful teaching. It's very special.
Well, you're
We're
welcome.
very grateful.
I'm
Please
glad
stay
to
with
have
us.
glad to have you here to teach. So class will usually be an hour, perhaps 2 hours as we get deeper into the subject. So I'm trying to keep it along the lines of how Geshe Michael taught it. So this first class is his first class for Lam Rim 1, and we'll proceed from there. So I would appreciate being on time. When we do start meditating, it would be very inconsiderate to show up 5 minutes late if we start class with a meditation. So I will start at 2 o'clock, period. If you're late, I'll be disappointed. I would prefer to have everybody show up and be ready to go at 2 p.m. Okay, if there are no further questions, I think that does it for today.
I just want to say thank you, Venerable Sumati, for teaching Lam Rim 1. I remember when I started studying Lam Rims, it was Lam Rim 34. And and it was 34 or 32, I don't remember. But I never thought that I will have the opportunity to start again. Well, actually start. So have the teaching since the beginning, and with a special teacher in my heart. So thank you for doing it, and please stay healthy so we can catch up all the
Well,
Lam
it's
Rims with you.
interesting, Ale, that you mentioned that, because after this first course in November of 2010, we went into 3-year retreat. And so it's going to be a real treat for me to go and listen to the Lam Rims during the 3-year retreat, talking about things I've never heard Geshe Michael say. So that's going to be a treat for me. It'll be actually kind of fun to see what they say about 3-year retreat as it's progressing. I'm looking forward to seeing what they said.
Well, we all know what they say, that somebody complained about they didn't get the chips. Just kidding.
It's funny. We had a huge repertoire menu of food we could order, shopping list, and we were really spoiled. But what my wife and I did to ensure that we would have the care we needed, we paid for another cabin's retreat food. every month, dedicating that to the fact that if we did that and knew that by planting those seeds, we would have the abundance we needed in the future, because these were very powerful karmic objects being in this retreat. So we didn't have a particular cabin, but we took what it cost for us to be supported, and we added that back every month to the to Diamond Mountain's retreat fund. And it was kind of fun to know that during 3-year retreat that we were doing that. It warmed our hearts and made it that much easier to do retreat. So, okay. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you on Friday. If you have any questions, submit them to Natalia, and she'll submit them to me, and we'll discuss those. I haven't decided what we're going to do on this Friday yet. I'm gonna think about that.
Oh, I think Francisco has an announcement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Lam Sumati, for this teaching. Please stay with us. I think that I start with Lam Rim 37 and I say, oh, I lost her old Lam Rim, like already. So it's a blessing to hear Lam Rim again. Thank you so much, and please stay with us. Please, we invite you to choose one quote, one sentence of these teachings and send it to Natalia. Natalia is also the course manager, so if you have any doubt, you can address with her and she will be happy to help us across the teachings. So please stay with us, Lam Sumati, and thank you all to be here.
Okay. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to teach, and I'll try my best to convey what Geshe Michael's intent on each of the classes. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, dearest Lama Sumati. We're
You're
looking
welcome.
forward to hearing your retreat stories.
Oh, well, I've got a lot of them. It's just a
Wonderful.
matter of